Okay. Thank you. Anyone warm? I'm exceptionally warm in this jacket. But I'm going to leave it on because there'll be massive sweat patches and I'm much more attractive without those. So I'm just going to talk to you for a minute about our needs assessment which we conducted. In 2009, Colchester Gay Switchboard was awarded funds from the Henry Smith charity via the Essex Community Foundation for a capacity building project. The outcomes were, oh that's me, the outcomes were shape new services to meet the future needs of local LGBT community, establish needs of the LGBT community and research experience of other similar organisations, disseminate the learning from this project to other voluntary services nationally, and the value of this learning is not restricted just to LGBT services. So it's great to see so many representatives from other organisations in the room. So the first step of this project was to conduct a lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender needs assessment for the population of Essex. With all strands of this community group likely to be expressing differing views on their experiences, however there would be some crossover. So the needs of a trans female compared to the needs of a gay male are quite different, but there is some crossover points in the way that they access services and the way that people interact with them. So after doing a bit of research nationally, we took some heavy influence from our cousins in Suffolk who conducted a similar survey in 2009. And rather than asking very broad questions, we would focus the needs assessment on asking of people's experiences of services. So we broke it down into different sections, which were employment and education, goods and services, health and social care, living environment, crime policing, and LGBT-specific issues. We knew we couldn't just use a needs assessment to change what we did in-house as an organisation. It would never be far-reaching enough. We couldn't just rely on the people who walked through our front door. But if we got people's views and experiences on mainstream service provision, we could use these findings in that survey to challenge existing practices and perhaps even find some good practices going on and highlight that and use some of that experience. No one has really seemed to ask these questions of LGBT people in Essex before at this extent. We wanted to try and give the community some sort of voice to barter with and make services accessible to all as a result. Rather than pulling together focus groups of LGBT people, which would likely comprise of the same faces who tend to show up for things, who already know how to access services, are quite confident with who they are, and have no issues, we wanted to sort of reach those individuals who perhaps aren't quite as confident, who perhaps aren't on the scene, as it were. Excuse me, lost my place. It was always going to be a hard sell to encourage individuals to complete a survey which took 20 minutes plus. But we went about promoting predominantly online. We created itsourfuture.com to set aside from Colchester Gay Switchboard. We didn't want individuals having preconceived ideas on what the purpose of the survey was and really wanted it to have its own identity. We partnered up with Essex-based community group EGM in the promotion, also via social networking sites such as Twitter, Facebook and Gaydar. The survey ran from late 2010 to spring 2011. All in all, we received 154 responses from LGBT people in Essex and a handful who were outside of Essex and a handful from heterosexual people saying, why aren't you asking me these questions? Once we weeded all of those out, we had 154 left. And we know this is nowhere near enough to have a true reflection and could not count as a piece of research. But for us, it was a real starting point and highlighted areas of further investigation in the future. I shan't go into all the detail about each area. You are welcome to do that in your own time in the document we provided in your packs. But some of the interesting points that came out were most LGBT people in Essex changed their behaviour in public to keep themselves safe. That was quite high. That was about 63% of people. There are increased levels of crime compared to the wider LGBT communities, coupled with low reporting. There is more than twice the level of workplace bullying and victimisation as reported in the general population. 18% had experienced or observed discrimination in the provision of goods and services. There are higher than national average levels of people who smoke and use illegal drugs. We're all in the room, right? With low levels of exercise taken. There is, don't laugh at me. There is low usage of health services in the county and a lack of clarity around the need of appropriate health information. And surprisingly, a large majority of people are happy to disclose their sexual orientation if given clear rationale for doing so. And I know a lot of organisations are quite nervous about asking individuals about their sexuality. Whilst doing the survey, we were asked why were we doing it on a number of occasions. Why do we need to know these things? Surely LGBT people experiences of services are the same as everyone else's. Well, we know this not to be the case. Sexuality and gender identity has so much more to do with how you live your everyday life. It's not all related to what goes on behind closed doors. How people feel about themselves affects their day-to-day experiences. We know from national research that the LGBT people are more likely to be living with mental health problems. Gay men are 7 times more likely to try and commit suicide, as Tom had already said. He's stolen all my material. There's higher prevalence of substance misuse. Often young people leave school with less qualifications. Older LGBT people fear coming out to their carers in case of judgment. Hate crime is still a daily reality for thousands of LGBT people living in the UK. Bullying in schools and the use of homophobic language continues with little challenges from the adult population, and same-sex domestic violence often isn't treated with the severity of heterosexual couples. I always go back to what the Equality and Human Rights Commission said on the topic of gathering this information. Without clearer evidence on where lesbian, gay and bisexual people live, where they work, what their experiences and needs of public services are, we are missing a vital piece of the jigsaw. Evidence is the key to making services reflect everyone's experiences and meet their needs. I believe our survey is merely scratching the surface of what needs to be looked at in Essex to truly achieve LGBT equality. That's all from me for now. I'll be back. I'm going to hand over to our tremendous speakers who have joined us this evening. We're not going to get up and introduce them one by one because we just simply don't have the time and we want to drink. So I'll just let them all just speak. But I've been overwhelmed by their complete commitment of being involved today. So it's a real privilege for me to introduce some of these people. The first of whom will hate me for doing this.
Oh, what?
Yeah. She just sent me a blank slide and then I put some nice pictures on it. Ellie Barnes is actually #1 most influential LGBT person on the Independent on Sunday's Pink list. Let's not forget that. That's why we're so privileged to have her in the room today, because she's so busy and so above herself these days. But I'd like to welcome Ellie Barnes up. Thank you.
Thank you.